All right, good evening and welcome to our Monday, July 28th regular council meeting. Call to order. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that the July 28th, 2025 council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be opened at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. If we could all rise to sing our national anthem. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Approval of agenda. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are no amendments to the agenda as circulated, unless there are any items to be pulled from consent.
Okay, no agenda items pulled. Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as circulated. All those in favor? Carried. Approval of previous minutes. Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as circulated. Previous meeting minutes, July 14th, 2025. Closed session minutes, June 23rd and July 14th, 2025. Any errors or omissions? None seen. All those in favor? Carried. We'll move into presentations and delegations. Koala Place and Victim Services of STG. Mrs. Prier. Yep. Okay, just before you go to speak, there's the gray button on the microphone in front of you, and then speak into it just because it's for audio afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one time. Thank you so much for making room on your busy agenda to hear a little bit about our two nonprofit organizations, Koala Place Child and Youth Advocacy Center and Victim Services of Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry, and Akwesasne. I understand we have about 10 minutes, so we will go through this quickly. So currently we are located in Cornwall. We serve the jurisdiction of Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry, Akwesasne. One program that Victim Services offers serves Prescott Russell as well. And then That agency also serves the whole province of Ontario. So I'll go into further detail as the presentation progresses. Both organizations have grown significantly over the last few years, hence the need for us to move to a new location. And that move is planned for August, mid-August of this year. Thank you. So first I'll talk a little bit about Koala Place. Koala Place is a child and youth advocacy center. This is our community's legacy following Project Truth several years ago. And establishing a child and youth advocacy center in our community was a recommendation by Commissioner Glode at the time. And he had a number of recommendations for our community following the inquiry. If you scan the QR code, again, at your leisure, it will lead you to a virtual tour of Koala Place. So you'll see how we are uniquely set up to support children that are victims of abuse. Our location provides a safe place where children can share their stories of abuse, and they are interviewed by police officers and child protection workers. That disclosure is then part of the court record. And this eliminates the need for the child to tell their story a second time or a third time. It captures the evidence, and that is then presented to the Crown Attorney as part of the evidence for court. Next. So this gives you a little more information about what we do. This is the image of our current interview room. It is video and audio equipped with state-of-the-art equipment so that we can capture high quality video and audio to be part of a court record. Our next location where we're moving, we're looking to have 2 such interviews to accommodate the growing need of forensic interviews in children that are being victimized. Next slide. Oh, this is a new program that we have been awarded by the Ministry of the Attorney General. This is the Child Victim Witness Program, and this has been awarded to us, and the purpose is to prepare children who are going to court, who have been the direct victim or a witness in a crime against another child. So our role will be to support and prepare these children for court, understanding the different roles of those that are in the courtroom, the difference between telling the truth and a lie, helping them manage the anxiety and stress of having to go to court and share their story. The hope for us with our new service delivery model of this program is that the child can be seen from the time of disclosure through to court case disposition, all at our center, as opposed to seeing the inside of a police station or a courtroom. So our new location is going to be equipped with a closed circuit television room where children can provide their testimony virtually. So our newest member is Corey. In 2024, we celebrated a milestone of 10 years in our community. I'd like to point out that our CYAC is one of 8 fully operational in the whole province of Ontario. So we have a unique little gem in our community as a result of some hard work from senior leaders in our community following Project Truth. So these are some stats of Koala Place, and of the 28% of the individuals that received support last fiscal year, 18% of those were cases involving children, youth, and families that reside in the South Glengarry region. Since opening our doors in 2014, we have served or provided interview space for 1,365 interviews of children and youth and vulnerable adults at our center. These are some testimonials of families and children that have used our center over the last 11 years. Next, I will speak about victim services. I'd like to point out that these are 2 independent organizations, nonprofit organizations, overseen by 2 volunteer board of directors. So Victim Services, again, is a nonprofit organization. We've been in our community since 2006. We provide a range of services. On the right-hand side, you see the list of services that we do provide. One of our programs, Victim Crisis Assistance Ontario, is available in all jurisdictions across the province. This is a service that we provide 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This program is available after hours to our first responders, so fire, EMS, and our policing partners. They have access to an after-hours line, and they can reach us directly to provide immediate on-scene support where there's a victim of a crime or a tragic circumstance. We also have a family court support worker program where we support men and women who have been impacted by intimate partner violence. We help them navigate the family court process. Our newest program is the Internet Child Exploitation Counseling Program. We are the service provider for the whole province of Ontario, I'm proud to say. This provides opportunity for children who have been victimized through the use of technology, up to $2,500 of funds to purchase counseling fees to help them, counseling services rather, to help them following victimization on the internet. This includes bullying, this includes sharing of intimate images without their permission, support on how to get those images removed from the internet. We also provide up to $2,000 of counseling services to impacted family members, so mom, dad, siblings, etc. Our also a new program for us, hence the need for us to relocate, is the Youth Violence and Anti-Human Trafficking Prevention Program. One of the first slides, if you want to go back, Mary Lynn, just to the first one for VS. This gives you a bit of an idea of the campaign that we've undertaken last fiscal year with this newest program. You may have seen some of these images throughout the city of Cornwall, and we're very, very proud about that. And we also have some resources that we're going to leave with you called the IDB kits, again, as a result of this program. It's called I Deserve Better kits, and there's some helpful resources and items in there to help youth prepare for a party. They're going to go to parties, they're going to have some fun, but we have included in these kits some things that to help keep them safer. So we'll leave a few of those behind for council. If you want to go back, just want to cover some of the crime types. So I mentioned our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week program, Victim Crisis Assistance Ontario. You have there a list of areas that we might be able to assist. The crime types that we are often called to involve sexual assault, intimate partner violence, also unfortunately suicide, so we're there to support family members that are impacted. Overdoses, a number of difficult things, motor vehicle collisions as well, where there's a fatality. We are there to provide aftercare support to victims and witnesses. Okay. Keep going. Touched on that. Touched on that. These are some more images of our youth, anti-youth violence and human trafficking prevention campaign. So last fiscal year, and we operate on a fiscal year, April 2024 to February of this year, 17% of all of our referrals to any one of our programs that were previously listed were referred by OPP. Of those referrals, 15% resided in South Glengarry. Since February of this year, 19% of all referrals to victim services that came from OPP, 38% resided in South Glengarry. These are some snapshots of in individual situations that were in the news impacting South Glengarry and its residents. Now, I cannot confirm or deny whether we supported anyone involved in these difficult incidents, but just to give you an idea, our two organizations support South Glengarry residents and this community. So going back briefly to Koala Place, this provides you some stats on the number of child interviews that have taken place at our center last fiscal year. So 64% were children, 32% were what we call vulnerable adults. So that could include victims of sex trafficking, people that may have a developmental disability, individuals struggling with drug and alcohol use. And 4% were interviewed at our center who are referred to as non-offending caregivers, so parents and caregivers of the children that come through our center. The next slide gives you a breakdown of the types of crimes that are seen at Koala Place. 48 involve sexual assault, 27 involve physical assault, 12, forgive me, I don't have my glasses on, involved combined sexual and physical assault, and historical sexual abuse were 4, and domestic violence, so where they witnessed violence between their mother and father, perhaps, that was a total of 8. Here are our statistics last fiscal year for the various programs that Victim Services offers. We have received just under 2,700 referrals to our 24/7 program. We received 116 referrals to our family court program, and 294 referrals came in across the province for our internet child exploitation counseling program and urgent response program. That's our after hours. So we received 44 calls for assistance from police after hours, so evenings and weekends. These are some of the common referral types across the board, regardless of which community that we are representing. Intimate partner violence, domestic violence is the most significant social issue in our community, and this is true year after year. Okay. Here's a breakdown of what we've provided, the number of individuals we've served over the last 4 fiscal years, and you can see that last year was our busiest year across the board for all of our programs. So this is our new location that we are taking possession of in August. As mentioned, we are expanding to 2 interview rooms for Koala Place and a dedicated closed-circuit television room for children and youth so they can provide remote testimony from our location as opposed to the courthouse. We are co-locating, again, Victim Services and Koala Place so that we can ensure that more of our government dollars are going to direct client services as opposed to overhead costs. Such as bricks and mortar and internet. So we are cost sharing a lot of the, the cost of doing business, if you will, at the back office end. Here's a bit of a chart of our new location and how we're going to maximize the use of the space. Go ahead. Recently, there was a press release with MP and MPP Nolan Quinn and Eric Duncan. This was to announce the $600,000 over 3 years. This is not every year, to operate the new program, Child Victim Witness Program that I spoke of earlier. And here you have just some other marketing and in the news events from both Victim Services and Koala Place. The photo on the left is our IDB kits, which I'll leave you with. I Deserve Better, and Last year, the first round of funds that we received from the ministry for the Youth Violence and Anti-Human Trafficking Prevention Campaign, we produced 150 of those kits, and within 48 hours, we had 0 left. These were extremely popular. So with the funds that we got from the ministry, rather, we produced another 500. So if anyone has young daughters or young sons who are going away to university or college, and if you would like to obtain a kit for your loved ones, please contact the office. Here you have our contact information. I will leave some posters if there's interest to post them anywhere around some of our marketing campaign and public awareness. This campaign really focuses on healthy relationships. Our demographic is ages 12 to 29 years. So healthy relationships, acceptance, given how quickly our communities are changing and becoming more diversified, as well as internet safety for that age range. And that concludes my presentation. I'm open to questions if anyone has any. Sure.
Sorry, just on this is a council meeting. I'm not trying to take you out of it, but if you'd like to talk after the meeting, you're more than welcome to. It's, well, this is a council meeting for council. Oh, yes, but this is a presentation to council. Okay.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Okay. This conversation should happen if you'd like it on your exit. This is.
Geraldine, we can discuss later.
Okay, thank you. So can we have
I welcome your feedback, Geraldine.
So then is there, you can certainly put it in writing and please give it to them. So then is there a comment or question from around council? Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. Ms. Pierre, thank you very much for bringing this presentation. It's always, it's very sobering to be reminded of the challenges that too many of our members of our community face. And it's, I mean, the service that you're providing is obviously very well needed, and I wanted to extend my thanks to you and those who work with you for doing this, because I can only imagine that it is very difficult. Rewarding at times, but I can only imagine extremely difficult as well, so thank you.
Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you as well. Like as Councillor Jaworski said, the service you provide is, and you can't put a dollar value on it. And I've had the privilege of touring your facility as well, and we've had a number of meetings in my past capacity. So I appreciate all the work that you guys do for our residents and for the residents of SDG, Cornwall, and Akwesasne. So thank you for coming to us, and yeah, we love these updates and seeing what services are aware, and it gives us the opportunity to make a lot of our community aware that these services are available to them, and they're not that far away, and they're 24/7, and it's just a phone call. So we're happy to see it, and that you have such a good rapport with the OPP and the Cornwall Police. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Through you, Mayor McDonald. I had a question that I had noted down, but then, so one item that we have seen come across, like in terms of correspondence at the council table, is other municipalities in Ontario who have made a resolution around the intimate partner violence epidemic in Ontario, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to comment on if that is something that you think, because up to now we haven't done that here in South Glengarry, and I'd just like your feedback on whether you think that action is something that we should take, if there's other actions that you would like to see us take as a township.
That is an excellent question. I can share that Council for the City of Cornwall has submitted a letter declaring IPV, intimate partner violence, an epidemic in the City of Cornwall. I have yet to see our neighboring townships follow suit, but I am more than happy if council is open to it to provide some stats and some of the backstory for that whole movement, if that's something that would be of interest. But certainly this really is an epidemic across the province of Ontario. And not only is it impacting men and women, because men are also victims of intimate partner violence, though it's underreported. The majority of victims are female, absolutely. But these are environments that our children are growing up in and witnessing, and oftentimes also direct victims as a result of physical violence. So it really changes the trajectory of who our kids are intended to be as adults. So I can talk about this all evening, obviously, but if there is an interest for council to learn a little more about the backstory and who has signed on, which communities across the province who have signed on, I'm happy to share those details.
No, and I enjoy that ICE is actually a positive thing here as opposed to south of the border. Not that it has to exist, but CBC had an interesting documentary or a marketplace, one of those types of things that showed how quickly a young lady is solicited as soon as they're on the internet. So I think that's a very important thing nowadays, because I remember as a kid, you played Super Nintendo, that's you and your brother, you and your sister, and now you go online and that picture is, I think it's from Roblox, and I play that with my niece and nephew because they like to do it, and I'm still a nerd at heart, so like I love to play with them, but like sometimes they do get bullied on it while I'm there, and you don't know if it is an adult because some of the words that are said are pretty different. So the landscape is different, so I think that's a very important program. I see you have only like 2 years of data, so it seems like a recent program.
If I may, it's been around for about 14 years. Prior to that, it was a Toronto-based organization that was delivering the program. And through a openness for proposals, our proposal was a successful bid for to be the next provider for the province.
Yeah, so it's something that I'm particularly, because it's just a different world, right? The internet comes right to you, and we have to be very mindful of that. I know, like, I'm sure those with young kids or grandkids, the want for a cell phone and just to keep in touch, but then that's the gateway to the internet. So I'm a fan of that program with additions, but I just wanted to highlight that particular one because it touches those who I'm closest to. With this presentation, did you have a request of it, or was it just to have to bring your awareness to council?
Certainly awareness that organizations like ours exist. Notably, if you haven't heard of either organization, that's a good thing. It's because you haven't needed either one. You or someone close to you hasn't been a victim of crime or tragic circumstance. So that is the first point. The second is, if there is some funding available through council to support our move, either this one time or perhaps in the future. We do not receive any funds from any of council groups across our jurisdiction, although our councillors, of course, our council tables do support first responder organizations like EMS and fire and police. So we provide the aftercare. But if there are some funds available to help with our relocation and our unique needs, we'd be more than grateful. Although we do receive some funding from the Government of Ontario, and Koala Place receives some funds from Justice Canada, vulnerable victims portfolio. We don't receive funds for these one-offs for relocating. It's strictly dedicated to service delivery and getting it to the people in need.
So then a follow-up question would be, so we have a grants and donations program. Generally, it's cut off last Friday of November for the upcoming year. So maybe you get in touch with I think you've been in touch with Kelly or Mrs. Campo to get that. In addition, if you need amounts more or sooner, We're fairly subscribed on that program for budget allocation, so it might be beneficial to go in the 2026 budget, but I think that's the avenue. If that's something you wish to present, we can take your documentation and we'll go from there. But otherwise, thank you for bringing awareness.
Thank you so much for your time, all of you. We really appreciate having the opportunity to create some awareness. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Lang.
If you would allow me, I'm just wondering, as we have a lot of people in the audience, and likely a lot of these people haven't been to too many council meetings, I wondered if yourself or our Madam Clerk wanted to kind of give them a little bit of a briefing on what how our rules are laid out and how we're able to function, and because a lot of people assume that there's question and answer, but they don't really realize that it's a meeting of council and that the public is welcome to watch, but it's similar to Queen's Park where you don't get to make, somebody could maybe update them.
Can I leave that to you as the rules major or the expert? I can add to it if you'd like.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to. Welcome to everybody to our council meeting this evening. A lot of you may have attended our public meeting a couple of weeks ago, which is a different format to a council meeting. So with a council meeting, which is what we're holding this evening, this is a meeting of council where they are receiving recommendations from staff, reports. So contrary to a public meeting, there is not an open opportunity for members of the public to address council or ask questions or engage. In a public meeting, that's where the public is invited up. You state your name and address and you make your comments. However, in this venue, council is receiving information, whether it be through a delegation that was previously requested before this evening or through a staff report. So when Mr. Mayor here asks if there are any questions, he's addressing his colleagues around the council table. Does that sum it up, I think? I think that about sums it up. So I will leave it to you, Mr. Mayor, if there's anything else you want me to touch on, but I think that covers essentially the difference between a public meeting and the regular council meeting, which is what we're doing this evening.
Yep, okay, that covers it. So then our presentation and delegation up next is 7B, South Lancaster rezoning application. Maurice Gatchain.
May I start now? Okay.
Please.
A little bit
do.
of role reversal this evening. Margaret's going to help me with the slideshow. We were here a couple of weeks ago, and I appreciate her help. Just next one. So we had addressed some of these issues when Margaret and I appeared last time, and why I'm here is to reinforce what she said that evening, but also reinforce some of the things that came up at the public hearing and which need to be more fully articulated. I'm going to try and combine 5 different things. I've made a list for myself, and I'll see if I succeed because it's going to be a bit of a challenge. I'm going to talk about, number 1, the Magna Carta and this 1860. I found this book which dates from 1879, and I'm going to be combining that with my computer, which allows me access to AI. I live in a 200-year-old house, and it's quite exciting to know that I can access 2 floors of researchers down in my basement. So it's a real buzz for me, and I'll be speaking to these issues as we go. The third element I want to talk about, and it'll come up during the slideshow, is Tim the Toolman from Home Improvement, whose wisdom sometimes in a befuddled way was quite useful to us. The fourth item, which will also be part of the slides, is having a crystal ball to try and see into the future, trying to see what has transpired. And the last one will be Premier Ford and Justin Trudeau, and their photos are in the slideshow. So we're combining 5 different, rather disparate elements, and we'll see if I succeed in tying them all together towards the end. So when we look at why South Lancaster matters, we look at these 6 houses. None of the 6 include mine, but they all have a commonality, which is a frame construction, and they date from hundreds of years ago when South Lancaster was a stagecoach stop along the way from Toronto to Montreal. So it has its character, and it's been a character that I've enjoyed in moving to South Lancaster. I had lived in New York the year before, and my wife and son were in Montreal. So for us, it was a beautiful transition into a wonderful area. So next slide. So why Premier Ford matters in all of this, he was under quite a bit of pressure last year, and it was reflected in the newspapers, it was reflected in the pressure from the federal government to allow fourplexes, and he basically said no. He called it would be a massive mistake. He didn't say a small mistake, a massive mistake. And he basically also added that he was saying, I can assure you 1,000%, not 100%, not 500%, 1,000%. That's how strongly he felt about this, that fourplexes, multis on a single lot were not the answer. The maximum would be 3. So Premier Ford, whose government has set the policy in this province, and the official plan complies with the provincial policy statement, we should be mindful of what Premier Ford had to say. And this particular project is really totally out of step with his directives on that particular front. So, which brings us to Tim the Toolman in a way, and I hate to tie him to Premier Ford, but my wife used to make me watch Tim the Toolman and see if I could learn, and one of the episodes which she really liked was the episode about the use of the W word, where Tim the Toolman had to admit that he was wrong. And it's a very difficult thing sometimes for us to look at this report and this initiative as perhaps being wrong. It's a lot easier to say to somebody, well, you know, you're right. But very difficult when we start embarking on something that is the wrong initiative, wrongly thought out, and all of a sudden we find ourselves sliding into something that's going to basically change the character of this hamlet. And what we're considering, or what the council is considering with this application, is wrong. And it should be noted that it's possible, just like Tim the Toolman could pivot, change his direction, we should all have the maturity to do that. And that's what we're asking council to do with regard to what's been recommended, what's set out in the staff report. And when I looked at this book from 1869, one of the things that it said, it was really quite, it's, by the way, beautifully written, and sometimes when I read the Glengarry newspaper and I see things from 50 years ago and 80 years ago and 100 years ago, I realize how erudite the journalists were in that era. And one of the things the book stipulates or says is, works of local history possess a charm which is heightened, not diminished by the lapse of years, which is what South Lancaster represents. It's more charming today than it was before that. So we're looking to preserve that charm. A 4-story, multi-res, very let's say, in harmony with its environment is not the answer to that. There's no charm to this project. There's none of the spirit that we've been looking to preserve in the community, which this book does a very good job of capturing. When I looked at these photos from over 150 years ago, you know, and a lot of the people have names like McDonald, you know, that they would be looking at passing on to you the responsibility to maintain this charm that's been cultivated. So when we look at, it was interesting for me to use AI to look at some of the elements from the past, one of them being the Magna Carta, and I didn't realize that at the time it only applied to about 25 lords and earls, and part of their social contract with their people was to preserve their values. I'm not saying that every noble was a noble, but a lot of them were, and they had sets of values. And one of the things they were very, considering very important was the idea of guardianship. And AI provided me with this one quote, and you have to kind of look at this as this is your moment to honor the trust that we have placed in you. When we elect people, we don't expect them to come back to us and say, well, these bylaws, these zoning doesn't matter, we're going to just change it. That's not the guardianship, it's not the guardian that we want for our community. We're asking you to be our guardians and to take care of this legacy that's reflected in this book, and that we try to live by that. So when we look at the crystal ball aspect, that when I try to think of how I felt a month ago or 2 months ago, and if I had projected what would happen, I would not have been able to find a crystal ball to project the rushed way in which this has been handled. Totally out of keeping with everything I've experienced with regard to Glengarry in the past. You know, a report from FOTEN that I didn't get to see till the day after the public hearing. You know, you've got your code of conduct, you've got your policy statements about transparency, and I did not experience any of that transparency. I was very surprised. So when we look at the latest version of the FOTEN report, which came out on July 17th, we're going to get to see it till July 25th, Friday afternoon, late. So there has to be a better process, not only for this particular application, but for the future. The transparency that you're speaking to or speaking of in your basic principles has not been respected in this particular application. So if there's a course correction that needs to take place, it's maybe a good learning experience, because what happened was also wrong to do. We cannot, as the public, react to things we don't see. And now we have the township has an excellent website. It would have been easy to have the FOTEN report, which was ready on May 29th, available on May 29th. When my wife and I received the public notice, there should have been a link to the website that would give me access to the FOTEN report. So when we show up here for a public hearing, you know, we expect to have the information to have that public hearing be useful. This whole process should be restarted, and there should be a proper public hearing. So when we looked at this rushed approval, it was rushed all the way. And I'm accustomed to doing a lot of these types of things from the past, from when I was practicing. I don't practice anymore, but none of this was familiar to me. It was rushed on all fronts. So when we look at the people who were here that night, I did my best that evening to temper the feelings, and I don't want to give anybody the feeling that I was trying to take over the meeting, because I wasn't. I was actually trying to make it as productive as possible, make sure that everybody got to say their piece, but in a respectful way. So it may not have been perfect, but we tried. And I would like to address the aspect of the laughter that evening. And I used AI, and it was sort of interesting to ask it some questions. And I asked it, like, if somebody, here's the question. I said, the project has been supported by an expert who spoke to no one in the hamlet. A person who came in from a city of 2 million people, or 1 million people, I should say, from Ottawa. Actually, the two people who prepared the report were not here that evening. We heard from someone else from that office. So advising, if they were advising a hamlet of 350 people, what can a person offer in terms of expertise in such circumstances? So AI comes back to me and says, well, you'd have to look at it as he's got book learning about places he's never lived. So most of us understand what book learning limitations are. Street learning, street smarts are far better than book learning. I also asked AI if the shoe was on the other foot, a country mouse expert going to a city of 1 million people, not even getting out of their car to talk to anybody, what would be the reaction to a report from that expert? And the answer was, well, people would be saying, did he interview the parking meters since he didn't talk to anyone? He probably thinks our traffic problem can be solved with a four-way stop. So when we look at the FOTEN report, okay, if they don't talk to a single person, right, and they're coming from a city of 1 million people, we would never go to Toronto and just expect, we wouldn't, if we were asked to address a problem in Toronto, we would say, I have to go there to look, I have to see it, I have to talk to the people there. But quite often, decisions do come from Toronto without anybody talking. People from Toronto will not hesitate to tell us what to do. So we have to look at that report with a grain of salt. So when I asked AI about, well, if a City Mouse expert made a lengthy presentation, and it was lengthy, if the Hamlet residents genuinely laughed at the disconnected from reality presentation, should they be reprimanded for finding such content funny? So AI said, well, that would be the emperor's new clothes moment. Sometimes laughter is the most honest response when everyone can see that something is nonsensical. So when we look at the way that presentation went, it went on for 43 slides. Ate up a valuable amount of time that should have been available for the public to speak. You know, I'm limited tonight to 15 minutes, and I'm going to try and respect that. But essentially, you know, and again, this is for future presentations. Presentations that last forever and forever are not the way to communicate, especially where they squeeze the time for everybody that night. So we're handicapped now. I'm expected to make comments about a report I didn't see till Friday afternoon, and I had to file my remarks on Tuesday. So that's not exactly the kind of dialogue that helps the public. So when we look at these oversights, we look at the rushed approval, we have to kind of look at the pressure that was brought by the federal government in all of this, and they're talking about more housing, but the person who was advocating for that sort of ill-disciplined way to bring housing about, he's gone. Prime Minister Trudeau is gone, and I think everybody would say that thank the Lord he is. But Premier Ford was wisely came at it with a different perspective, which was we need to be disciplined about it. We just can't have a blank check, and turning South Lancaster into something that it isn't is not the way to go. There's a very dangerous precedent here to be considered. Because once you let one four-story building go in there, how do you say no to the next one? How do you say no? You can't. So you need to say no now, not later, because later it will not happen. You'll have set a dangerous precedent. This is an R2 zoning. And if you're going to change the zoning, you need more than a report from an expert who didn't even get out of his car to talk to anybody. You need to rethink this completely. It's a very momentous decision you're about to take. So when we look at the trust that we put in you collectively, okay, if somebody had come and run for office several years ago and said, I don't believe in zoning. A man could do whatever he wants with his property. Zoning just does, you wouldn't get elected. There's nobody would go along with that. It's too open-ended, it's too blank check. And the report that you're relying on is from someone who is not from here and didn't talk to anybody I know in the hamlet. So how do you get an impression that's accurate if you're not talking to anybody. Just like if I tried to give advice to somebody in Toronto and never went there, or Ottawa for that matter. So it's something for you to think about. I would encourage you to pause intelligently. And like Margaret suggested a couple of weeks ago, you've got the opportunity to look at the heritage aspect of the community, get some experts who will actually get out of their car and talk to people. That would be a start. That would be the way to do it. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer your questions.
All right, I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. I didn't want to miss something there. Any comments of council about the presentation? Okay, Deputy Mayor Lang.
I don't want to appear rude and say that we don't have any, but I'm quite sure council will, where the decision's coming up later tonight, I'm quite sure council will have comments at the time. We definitely, at this point, I don't think we've been making a lot of comments. We've been listening for a long time and being bombarded with things to listen to and things to read and so forth. So thank you for the presentation. I think you guys have
So
definitely...
you will be making a decision tonight?
Well, certainly. It's on our agenda. The decision will be made tonight, yeah. And it'll, I don't want to get, it'll be explained at the time what the decision, like what the options are for our decision. It's yes, no, or deferred, whatever. Anyway, so I'll thank you for the presentation, and you guys have definitely put more work in than any other decision we've had to make so far this time, even more than the Cooper Marsh issue with the campground. It's been a lot more input from the residents. So.
Could I just ask one question? Because somebody just handed me a piece of paper about this zoning was passed in 2023? This particular zoning, when was it implemented?
I don't know.
Was it?
I don't know.
So just,
Well, the
we'll have
township
this
planner
question.
would know when it was put in place?
Go ahead, Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to say, I don't think we remember changing it offhand, but I would look to Ms. Haley maybe for... I'd look to Ms. Haley for that answer. I don't think it's... I don't remember rezoning crossing our table on this specific property, but I could be wrong.
Well, it would be bylaw, according to the information I have, it's bylaw 06-2023, so it looks like it was in 2023 that the comprehensive zoning bylaw was implemented.
So Mrs. Haley can answer that. If I see your microphone might be, here, it's working?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to answer the question, the comprehensive zoning bylaw was passed September 28th, 2009, with several amendments beyond the 2009 year.
Deputy Mayor Lang.
Just one thing I will add, and you mentioned it in your presentation about the bylaws, the existing bylaws and the zoning, and how council should follow just so that everyone's aware, we often change bylaws, update bylaws, change zoning, and I think that's kind of what we are here to do, is to continue to be a living, organization. We don't just stay stuck in, 1942 or 2024 even. Like I think that's our job. I feel it is, that we are always looking at, are there things we should be updating? So it's not unusual that we would be updating something or even changing things or altering them. That's kind of common.
All right, any further? Councillor McDonnell.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd say thank you for the presentation. We've had a conversation at length outside of a meeting here. When it comes to zoning, I'd agree with the Deputy Mayor. We do often, the night we had the public meeting for this application, we had one for another one. Last meeting, we also had a public meeting for another property rezoning. Properties change hands and often different plans are made for them. Or example of North Lancaster, they wanted to turn a commercial property into residential housing. We see that often. We see often requests for an exemption to the zoning bylaw, sometimes temporary, sometimes for the extent of the property. Everything can be changed. I guess there's just one point of clarification, or 2 points of clarification for myself, just based on going through your presentation. We had some time to look through it. I think it's, for us, to say it was rushed, this entire process. If this is your first time going through a public meeting in the public process, it may seem rushed in the sense that there's 2 meetings. There was a public meeting, and then there's normally an issue of a decision meeting, which comes later tonight, whether it's voted for approval or dismissed or delayed. But this is what we have to work with as a council. When an application is given to us, we have a certain timeline that we have to process them in. We were on day, I want to say 60, I think, for this decision. We were expected to follow our timelines. If we don't, we can be penalized. If the shoe was on the other foot and you're looking to rezone a commercial property to a home out in the county somewhere, you want, when you're excited about a project, if you're building a new home or you're building a project or whatever it is, you want things to be streamlined. You want them to be simplified for you to be able to maneuver that process yourself. I think maybe there's a perception it seemed rushed, but this is generally the speed we move at. We have 2 meetings a month. We have to work around that, and it's not fair to hold people up in projects and plans when they're working on these things all the time. But I guess what we're getting at is we apologize if you feel rushed. If we can ask staff if there needs to be some review to the way we do things, but this is not a one-off. This is the speed we move with all applications. This was not rushed through individually because we thought it might be contentious. The contrary, we probably went longer with this one to make sure that all comments were considered and everything was taken into consideration and got to us in time to make a proper informed decision based on what we have to work with between legislation from the province, the OP, and our zoning bylaw. And that's what we're here to do. But we definitely don't want you to feel that we rushed this through by any means just based on this one application. And the other part, I do want to refute you a bit on Doug Ford. Premier Ford came out and said he does not want as of right fourplexes, which would mean any person in here who has a rural one home or a lot would have the right to do a fourplex. As of now, you have the right to do a threeplex, which is a basement apartment, main level of a home, and then a garage suite. He said no, fourplexes across the province-wide. He said those decisions should be left to municipalities. So the headline does take it out of context, and Housing Minister at the time, Paul Calandra, did clarify that in the House a number of days later. I did go and find that from, I think yours was CBC, but ours was, the one I found was with Global and through MMAH over the weekend. I did get an email back from them clarifying that. So
I'm quite aware of the discretion that councils have, okay? What we're talking about here is the guidance that he was providing. But going back to your first remark about rushed, okay? I don't think there's a satisfactory explanation for why the FOTEN report dated May 29th was posted to your website on June 24th. There's nothing rushed or unrushed. I can read a report if it's given to me, as everybody here could have read it if it had been given to them, if it had been posted. So we show up on June 23rd, and we sit here in a hot, sweltering room for 45, 50 minutes, okay? I've done many PowerPoint presentations. That was an extraordinarily long, boring presentation. We could have all read it way in advance, and it would have been far more productive. We would have also been able to prepare our remarks much more succinctly. So rushed means you need information. If you don't have information and you only get it after the fact, it's really hard to react.
So I'll go about this a different way. The date on that presentation shouldn't really have to do with the meeting date. Yes, they may have had it published for themselves. That is somebody else's property until it's turned into us for a public meeting. That public document only became public when we saw it at that meeting. That is for context in regard to the request that was asked for. We are there only to specifically to speak of the alleviations. If the developer chooses to give us their plan in that much detail, we don't normally get that much detail.
But
And I
you
would
did-
say the
but you did have
40-minute
it.
presentation was welcomed, I think, from council, and I think from the residents. If the application came in and you just had that blank slate and it was eightplex, no renderings, no pictures, that wouldn't have been as nice, but that is what they're allowed to provide us as well at that planning stage.
I understand the rules. I understand, okay, that one of your rules is you're supposed to be transparent. Okay, those are your rules of conduct. And there's no transparency in withholding a report. I don't understand it.
I'm pretty sure.
Sam, Councillor McNell, just,
We'll
we are
we'll
going-
agree to disagree at this point. We are well over the time for this delegation, so I would like,
no, in fairness,
An
Councillor
an
McNell,
allegation is a statement that's not true. Are you saying that what I'm saying is not true? That this delay did not take place?
this isn't
I'll make
really-
one final comment, Mr. Mayor. We had a conversation offline without a crowd, and when we had that conversation, you acknowledged the fact that developers don't often put their money up front when they're planning these processes. They don't go through large-scale planning, they don't go to architects, they don't spend all that money to be disallowed to do what they want to do. I think what you're getting at now is you're trying to make a scene. And you know what? You've
I'm
succeeded.
trying
So
to
you-
what?
you're trying to make a scene of this because we've had a discussion offline. We've had a discussion offline, and you had a different tone when you spoke with me. So you know what? If we want to play this as a courtroom, go ahead. I'll turn it back to the mayor.
So we are getting, I think, on both sides, some, like, we're off topic on that regard. The clerk did share with me, typically we, and this is unique, and I'm sorry sometimes for, I do lean towards listening, so this has gone, like, off of, it's supposed to be about the presentation. It isn't a legal litigation, and I kind of, like, it is an interesting situation, because in many cases, like, I think there was like a pushback to have, like, this process has actually been more involved because the first presentation was about a different thing. This is like about an item that has already been brought forward to council. So in every right, whenever that delegation request came, and it is similar to a previous council meeting as well as a public one, there was the discretion to not receive this presentation. But we did, like, I queried council and we said, we want you to be heard, we want you to feel heard. And I think you have been heard in this presentation. This conversation between you and Councillor McDonnell is kind of getting off of the topic. You're now, I guess, kind of pointing allegations, and you have given us some ideas for doing this process better. And, like, I mean, I've been reading things and trying to do things, but one thing was our member of staff on the side of the developer, and if you'd have looked last meeting, we brought that over here because if there is a perceived conflict of interest, we can do better. And then I think like a denied a presentation was another comment, and this was, like, this presentation I think historically has been denied because it's on the same subject. So in that regard, we've changed things, we've listened on how we can seem like we're less perceived bias. Additionally, we've given this presentation because we're glad to receive it. We know it's a big issue. Typically, this presentation was declined, so I don't know if that gives some history, but we are listening, because I think the comments, and we'll get into that at the staff report time, because there's a lot to talk about, and I don't know, we don't discuss where we're going before, so we'll see the conversation, but I think this is such a big decision that well, I'll ask council if you're so willing, your thoughts behind your reasoning, because we don't just want to say yes or no or delay, we want to have the reasons behind it. And then I don't want to say but, and this presentation is about this presentation. I think we've gotten off topic on that particular point. So are there any other questions or clarifications to this presentation that can be made aside from, well, I guess I've gone on a little bit here, but to say we were getting off topic of the presentation and the task at hand.
No, I will be nice to to Mr. McDonnell in the future, I'm sorry. But I I made my point, and it was truthful, and I don't like the word allegation. I really don't. It suggests that somebody is saying something that's not true.
Okay, so then, did I say that word? Was that my word? Sorry if I said.
But if you're going to be making the vote tonight, I will be delivering a letter to the clerk, which you should read before you have your vote.
I don't know if, that's not exactly how the process is. This is a completely unique situation. I've never, I guess like since 2014, seen that type of behavior at council. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So moving on to action requests. 8A, unopened road allowance inventory. Mr. Fothrop has this one. So moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 2025-81 be received and that council direct administration to engage the Agricultural Resource Committee to discuss the various activities and alterations that have been identified to be taking place on the Township of South Glengarry's unopened road allowances. Mr. Fothrop.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff have completed a GIS mapping exercise to develop an inventory of the township's unopened road allowances. Attached to this report is a map highlighting in green the network of the township's unopened road allowances. And developing this inventory, we've identified some various activities taking place there, as well as some alterations that appear to have taken place. And so we are recommending that council direct administration to engage the Agricultural Resource Committee to hold discussions about the various activities and alterations that were identified.
Do any members of the council, in particular on the Ag Committee, have any thoughts on this? Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, and thanks for the presentation. And we're happy to have this come forward. I think that there's been discussion among the general public as to what we should do with our road allowances. The farm community likely has other opinions, and some of these road allowances, I'm thinking people don't maybe even know they're there. And can we scroll to the map? Like there's a lot of them. Like it almost looks like all the green are unopened road allowances. There's almost as many as we have of open roads. So and the general public, I'm sure a lot of them don't really know where they are, or you know, that there's the odd person may know some. So I think it's good to have the discussion. I think the township for a long time has kind of ignored them, pretended that they weren't there, but they are property that belong to everyone in this municipality, and everyone, you know, has paid taxes that in this municipality has a, you know, some interest in them, I guess. So I think it's time that we kind of took a little bit of ownership of these properties and kind of decide what we want to do with them, and whether that's you know, maybe renting them to the farmers or whatever we decide we're going to do. Maybe we'll decide we don't need all these road allowances. I don't know what the option is, but I think it's great that we're starting this conversation, start moving forward.
Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through Mayor McDonald. I'm also very happy to see this come forward, and I wanted to express appreciation to staff who've gone ahead and done all this mapping work and investigation, because I do, you know, there's a reason it's taken this amount of time to bring something like this together, because there was so much research and work done involved. So I just want to extend that thanks to staff for doing it.
And if I may, just a thought for the Ag Committee to consider is the SDNG natural heritage mapping. It might be something you wish to look at in addition, because there might be some of these plots we own that are valuable for, say, natural corridors. You don't have to, but just something, another item that we have in our back pocket.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, comment to that? Yeah, it would, if staff was to bring at the meeting, I'd like to have this map up, or at least, or maybe a larger one on the table for the Ag Resource Committee. And if the natural corridors one was there as well, maybe, you know, it'd be easy for people to kind of see where the two could overlap, and if there was some thought to that. And I guess it'll ultimately come down to council, but I think it's a good place to start, because any of these road allowances that maybe are being farmed that people don't even really realize they're doing it, or maybe they do, at least the Ag Committee can kind of start having this conversation where where we're going to go with this.
Well, then look forward to the recommendations that will come from that. Any other comments from council on this? All those in favor of the motion as read? Carried. We go into bylaws. Zoning bylaw amendment 2272234 Ontario Inc. This is by Mrs. Haley. Moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 2025-82 be received and that bylaw 2025-38 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 3809 to rezone the property legally described as part of lot 24 concession 6 in the geographic township of Lancaster, now Township of South Glengarry, County of Glengarry, PIN 671420058, addressed as 21127 Concession 5 Road, County Road 18, from core commercial, CC, to residential 3, R3, to permit the conversion of an existing structure to accommodate 3 residential units, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 28th day of July 2025. The Council of the Township of South Glengarry confirms that no comments from the public were received on this application. Therefore, there was no effect on the decision. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you mentioned, this property is located at 21127 Concession 5 Road, also known as County Road 18, in the rural settlement area of North Lancaster. So the subject property is approximately 0.54 acres in size. It is currently serviced by a septic system and a well. Many of you may remember this space as a commercial space that was quite active many years ago. Recently, the current owner demolished the rear portion of the building and is seeking permission to be able to create 3 residential units inside the existing structure. Because this property is serviced by a septic system and a well, it's very important for us to make sure that when we're increasing the density of the existing structure, that it can be serviced. If we were in a settlement area where we have municipal water and sewer, that would be a different situation. So in this particular case, the property owner engaged a septic system designer. That designer determined that the existing system was not adequate to accommodate the proposed change to 3 units. So therefore, they proceeded in developing a design to prove to the municipality that it's something they can achieve if they were to apply for the zoning amendment and to seek the approval. So that work has been completed, and we needed to know that in advance before we could make a recommendation to council. You'll see in the staff report that we provide the planning framework that we have to consider when we're dealing with zoning bylaw amendments, and that would be the official plan and the provincial planning statement. We I just gotta find my space here. So during the public consultation process, we notified the abutting property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. A public meeting was held on July 14th of this year. You may recall that there was 43 members of people in attendance. However, most of those members weren't in attendance for this particular zoning amendment, but we did document that accordingly. We also circulated the application to the United Counties of SD&G Transportation Department because it fronts on County Road 18, and they had no concerns with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Because the septic system design has been completed and we've reviewed the existing structure and the existing property, staff is recommending that this application be approved. If a decision is made tonight, a decision will be made on day 56. As you know, we have 90 days to complete the process. So as I mentioned, staff is recommending this application to be approved, which would result in the existing structure being converted to 3 residential units. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council? Okay. As these ones are longer, I don't need to reread the resolution. All those in favor of the motion as read? Carried. All right. On to zoning bylaw amendment Impala Developments Incorporated. It's Mrs. Haley again. Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 2025-83 be received and that bylaw 2025-39 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 3809 to rezone the property legally described as Lot 27, Registered Plan 15, in the geographic township of Lancaster, now in the township of South Glengarry, county of Glengarry, located at 20378 Old Montreal Road, South Lancaster, from residential 2, R2, to residential 4, exception 6, R4, 6, to permit an 8-unit apartment building to be developed, and bullet point 1, to recognize the existing 27.7 meters of lot frontage, to reduce the front yard setback from 6 meters to 3 meters, to reduce the landscaped buffer width from 3 meters to 1.5 meters on the rear south lot line, to reduce the interior yard setback from 6 meters to 5.5 meters, and to reduce the municipal road setback from 10 meters from the center line of the road to 0 meters. Be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 28th day of July, 2025, that all other applicable provisions of zoning bylaw 3809 as amended shall continue to apply, that council determined that the changes made in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment after the statutory public meeting was held did not require further notice to be given to the public, and that the council of the township of South Glengarry confirms that the comments received from the public were thoroughly reviewed and considered, but the effect did not influence council to deny the zoning amendment application. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to go to, so then I will just go, because I can't, I did err in my practice last time whenever a bathroom break was requested, and I unanimously gave it, so I'd have to go to council, because you learn from these experiences. Council has to approve if we do want to take a break for this, and Deputy Mayor Lang.
Can the clerk take a quick look at this? This is definitely not something that we're supposed to be doing, but if the clerk can see something in there that's information that's totally new, that we haven't seen before, and it's something that, you know, we would need to see beforehand, then I would be able to go with it, but otherwise, there's a lot of stall tactics here. Sir?
This is a
Can you please respect our meeting? And the meeting is, council makes the decision, and we don't want to be miserable about it, but this is, the province lays down the rules for our meetings, and we're not to get in an open debate. So I shouldn't even respond back, I guess, but sorry.
No, it is a meeting of council, and that is what Deputy Mayor Lang is trying to say. So would we like to give the clerk a moment, because it is hard to read on the spot like this. I'm not trying to, if council will grant that permission, because it's not mine to grant. Councillor Jaworski?
I'll support what Deputy Mayor Lang said.
Okay. So we'll just wait a moment here while it's a heavy burden to put on somebody to read that much in a short amount with dozens of eyes. Okay. So the clerk will just clarify, because she is the code of conduct expert, so she's just going to come around over there. Typically, we do not accommodate items that are not on the agenda, because, I mean, if there's something about public record and transparency, it is the information in front of us to the public given out on Friday. So I think this has to do with something that at the start of the meeting, I don't know if it'd be disclosure of pecuniary interest or something of that nature. And we did read the agenda, and in our best information that we would say that there was no declarations of pecuniary interest. And I think that would somewhat fall in that. Is that a fair assessment? So by reading this agenda, what was presented, would that not, like that kind of gets that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, so you are provided with an agenda with all of the attached documents, which are also made available to the public. You do call for any declarations of pecuniary interest at the beginning of a meeting for the public's benefit, as well as a reminder to council under the Municipal Code of Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. It is the responsibility of a member of council to declare any conflicts of interest that you may have. As the clerk, I cannot influence or provide you with advice on that. This is why we have an integrity commissioner on, what's the word I'm looking for? On retainer, who is available to you for advice if you ever feel that you might be and you want to seek that advice. But at the end of the day, it is your sole responsibility to declare a conflict of interest if you feel you have one. If you do not, there are processes under the Provincial Act that someone can pursue if they feel that there was a conflict that was not declared. However, that is not the responsibility of any member of staff or one of your colleagues around the council table to enforce or compel you to make. It is your own responsibility.
May I just ask a point of information as the youngest member of council, I suppose, in comparison to everybody? So normally it's like a fiduciary or a financial interest that benefits yourself, your brother, sister, mother, father, much like whenever we're talking about the peanut line, whenever I formerly lived in Williamstown, I couldn't vote on that matter because in theory, the township could sell it to me, so I have some benefit of land, so that's directly to me. So that's kind of what is on this specific item, being the Impala development, is being, I guess where we are to think about that, I guess, would that be alleged then, I guess, in this thing? Is that, or is this are we allowed to speak about what's put in front of us? I'm not trying to make this odd. I just want to make sure council has the information to
Mr. Mayor,
make a
if
decision.
you're, sorry, I'm to cut you off. Excuse me. Typically, Mr. Mayor, we would not receive handouts in the middle of a council meeting, nor would we pause to have council read them regardless of what the item is. And so whether or not you want to make a special exception to that, that is certainly your call as the chair of this meeting. However, our typical practice would be to not accept handouts at a meeting for a topic that is about to be voted on.
Okay. So in this regard, I think the conversation that we've had has been fairly obvious, what has been brought forward. So in that regard, I think I'm comfortable proceeding because I would have declared it in goodness and full transparency under disclosure of interest, and I'm sure many of you. Would you like to proceed with the meeting, or would we like to get into that conflict of interest conversation? Proceed with the meeting?
Yeah, I think we're ready to proceed. I mean, if there's a conflict of interest and we don't know about it, well, then we'll have to address it afterwards, but.
Okay. So then, I mean, in fairness to the audience, I don't think, I don't understand this conflict of interest, but maybe there's something out there because I think it's being alleged to all of us, but let's carry on at this point of the meeting. We're getting back to, so the item is still zoning bylaw amendment, Impala Developments Incorporated. Mrs. Haley have we gone through the presentation? No, we've read the resolution. Do I need to read it again, or can we get to the presentation, council? Get to the presentation, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you mentioned, this proposed zoning bylaw amendment is regarding Lot 27, Registered Plan 15 in the geographic township of Lancaster, now in South Glengarry, and it's located at 20378 Old Montreal Road. The subject property is located in the urban settlement area of South Lancaster. It is currently vacant, and it is approximately 0.28 acres in area and has access to municipal water and wastewater services. On May 29th, 2025, the township received a zoning amendment application for the subject property. The application at that time for the purpose of the amendment was to rezone the subject property from residential 2 to residential 4, exception 6, to permit an 8-unit apartment building to be developed and to recognize the existing 27.7 meters of frontage, to reduce the rear yard setback from 8 meters to 6 meters, to increase the building height from 11 to 12 meters, to reduce the landscape buffer width from 3 meters to 0.64 meters on the east interior side lot line, to reduce the municipal road setback from 10 meters from the center line of the road to 0, and to permit a balcony to project 2.05 meters in the exterior yard setback, to reduce the required 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit to 1 space per dwelling unit, and to eliminate designated visitor parking. All other applicable provisions of the zoning bylaw 3809 as amended would continue to apply. The proposed 8-unit apartment building consists of approximately 3.5 stories, 2 units per story, with a footprint of 2,335 square feet. A notice of the proposed bylaw amendment was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Ontario Planning Act. Notification was circulated to abutting property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands. A notice was published in the Seaway News, and a sign was posted on the subject property. It's been mentioned previously about information not being made available to the public, and I would like to point out that in our notice of public meeting, we include that additional information related to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is available between 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. At the township office, and that's obviously during business hours. Our notice was sent out on June 3rd, and we had many members of the public that came in and got copies of items that were in the report, including the planning rationale. A statutory public meeting was held on June 23rd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. 131 members of the public signed into the public meeting. Members of the public were provided an opportunity to submit oral submissions. At that evening, we had 15 members of the public speak, 14 spoke in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and 1 spoke to support the amendment. Planning staff have received a petition with 115 signatures opposing the proposed amendment. We've also received 64 written submissions at the time of authoring this report. That represented 47 individual authors and 24 letters co-authored by 2 or more individuals. We also received a few phone calls of support from the members of the public. The reason for the phone calls is they were uncomfortable in putting their name in writing, indicating their support for the development. We received several letters of support, as I mentioned. Most letters received were in opposition to the proposed amendment. And the common themes around the proposed building range from housing pressure, parking, snow storage, waste management pickup, historical significance, construction impacts, emergency services, lot suitability, character, and accessibility. You will see in the staff report that was provided to you, there's been detailed explanations on those matters included in the report. Following the public meeting and comments from applicable staff, the property owners revised the site plan and the planning rationale, and a new conceptual site plan and rationale was submitted on July 17th. The proposed development was redesigned to accommodate the 8-unit apartment building, which has reduced the number of provisions they were seeking relief from in comparison to the first submission. And this was as a result of a lot of feedback from the public. The proposed 8-unit apartment building remains as 3.5 stories, 2 units per story, with the same proposed footprint of 2,335 square feet. The proposed building has been reoriented and relocated to front onto Old Montreal Road. It now proposes to comply with the 11-meter maximum building height, and to note 11 meters is a maximum height that's permitted throughout the entire township in all residential zones. The balconies are now proposed on the south side of the structure only. The access or the entrance is proposed on King Street, with the parking lot to be located on the south side of the proposed building, which is essentially the backyard. The parking lot now accommodates 12 parking spaces, including 1 accessible space, which now meets the requirement of the bylaw. Garbage and recycling receptacles are proposed to be located on the west side of the subject property along King Street. This will allow a private waste
Point of
management company
information, Mayor.
to access.
Sorry.
There's just been a point of information. Councillor Jaworski, go ahead. Page 124 of the agenda. Because right now we're on page, yes, this one. This is the amended version.
No, that's okay. I believe I left off, we're speaking about the proposed waste management pickup on the west side of King Street that would allow a private company to access by side loading containers. There's now snow storage for winter parking lot maintenance proposed on site, and it's proposed to be located on the east and north side of the parking area. A civil engineering firm was retained. A civil engineering firm has been retained by the property owner to design a drainage and stormwater management plan. Underground water storage is proposed on site for stormwater. The township was verbally informed that a geotechnical investigation was also completed. We do not require that investigation until they apply for a building permit if the amendment is approved. In the staff report, I provided a comparison chart that shows the difference between the original submission and the revised submission for council and the public's benefit. A review of the planning policies was completed and analyzed based on the revised resubmission. You will see in the staff report by FOTEN how the proposed amendment is consistent with the PPS. You will see in the staff report and in the FOTEN report how the proposed amendment is consistent with the PPS and conforms to the official plan. The first amendment was reviewed, the proposed amendment was also reviewed by Infrastructure Services and Fire Services, and they have no objection to the proposed amendment. The proposed bylaw amendment is being recommended to be approved by council, and is the opinion of planning staff that it is consistent with the PPS 2024, and it does conform to the United Counties SD&G official plan, which is also South Glengarry's official plan. We have received and reviewed the land use planning opinion from MB1 Land Use Planning and Development Consulting. We have also received a letter from Denton's law firm requesting the application to be refused or deferred. And we have also consulted with our own lawyer. We had consultation with Tony Fleming of Cunningham Swan in advance of coming to our council meeting this evening. Our recommendation remains as presented to approve the amendment. If the amendment is approved, the subject property will be rezoned from residential 2 to residential 4, exception 6, to permit an 8-unit apartment building to be developed. As I mentioned, Mr. Mayor, the revised submission, just to summarize, would reduce the front yard setback to 6 meters to 3 meters, reduce the interior yard setback from 6 meters to 3 meters, reduce the landscape buffer from 3 meters to 1.5 meters between the south property line and the proposed parking lot, as well as to recognize the existing frontage of 27.7 and to reduce the municipal road setback from 10 meters to 0, although we know it's probably 2.5 to 3 meters in reality, however, it's not been surveyed. There's a few comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions and provide any clarification about information that's been available to the public, not available to the public, because I do believe we have all the information that was available. Individuals just needed to contact our office to receive the information. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, we'll start with Councillor Bougie.
Thank you, and through Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Haley, for the presentation. Now, for the audience's benefit, is there any way that we can go through those changes one by one, from parking to the setback changes, so that everyone is fully aware of what changes have been proposed?
If the clerk would provide me access to the mouse, that might help me out a little bit if you don't mind, and I'll gladly do that. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor.
And while the mouse is coming up, I would just like to go, and I think I hope I pre-warned you that I was going to ask you this question, Mr. Fire Chief, in that it is a bigger property than we have in that area, and I think there's some questions about infrastructure and our ability to serve that building. Ladder truck always comes to the table. I think a member of the public has asked me to ask you that. So do you see this as increasing a requirement for a ladder truck?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. An elevating device, more commonly known as a ladder truck or an aerial, would be a vehicle that we could use on occasion for this proposed building or some others. We do have many other buildings of this height in our municipality. We do not have this vehicle. We have agreements with 2 neighboring municipalities. In the future, we may consider this vehicle, but at the present time, we do not have a need for it, specific need that balances out against our call volume. And so to end, this particular building would not require us to solely get this vehicle solely for this proposed building. So,
So the agreement with the city of Cornwall would still exist, no level of service change or cost. Okay. Mrs. Haley, please proceed to Mr. Bougie's, Councillor Bougie's question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to answer or respond to Councillor Bougie, I will walk you through the proposed development as per the resubmitted or revised site plan. So as I mentioned, they're looking for a front yard setback reduction from 6 meters to 3 meters, and this would be considered the front yard. This is Old Montreal Road. The next request is to reduce the required 3-meter buffer, landscape buffer from 3 meters to 1.5 meters. And this would be right here on the south property line. You can see this white space in here. That means that that is going to be a green space. The next one is to reduce the interior side yard setback from 6 meters to 5 meters. You'll see that the building is angled. It's angled to match the orientation of the subject property, and the reduction of setback would be in this location. We also always talk about how the property has an existing 27.7 meters of frontage. The frontage is in this location. And in regards to the municipal road setback, this is going to be this is Old Montreal Road. Let's say the center line is up here. If this was a 66 foot or 20 meter road allowance, ideally we would have 10 meters between the center line and the front lot line. However, that's something that we don't have in most of our villages. So I believe that answers your question, Councillor Bougie.
Okay. Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. I have a question for Ms. Haley and a question for Ms. McDonald. With respect to the privacy fence that is required in the R4, can you speak to how it, does it go right to the road, or is it set back per a specific distance?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. So we have a provision in our zoning bylaw that requires opaque screening, fencing in between multi-residential and residential. A fence is going to be proposed on the east side as well as the south side. On the east side, from the front yard setback back is permitted to be 2 meters in height. Front yard setback forward is permitted to be 1 meter. And then on this side, it would be 2 meters in height, and the exterior side yard setback can be 1 meter in height. If there was additional fencing that was going to be proposed on the exterior, we would speak with infrastructure services, but would only be granted at at a height of 1 meter. You'll see a line in here. This is known as a daylighting or a sight triangle, and that's there on purpose to not be able to block any views at intersections. So there would be nothing permitted in this location. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Haley. Through Mayor McDonald, another question is with regards to drainage of a site like this. I was hoping that Ms. Haley or Ms. McDonald could speak to how do we ensure appropriate drainage.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll answer that question if Ms. McDonald wants to jump in by any means as in terms of the infrastructure side. So if and when a building permit is applied for, the applicant is required to submit what's called a grading and drainage plan for the subject property. It will have to meet not only building code standards, but our drainage and grading bylaw. At this stage, a full grading and drainage plan is not completed. It's not necessary to be completed at this stage. However, because of the comments that came out of the public meeting, there were discussions with the developer, and is my understanding with the retention of their civil engineer to prepare the grading and drainage plan. You'll see here that there's an underground water tank proposed to accommodate stormwater. The property will be graded to drain to Old Montreal Road, as that is the municipal outlet. And if there's any questions in regards to the municipal side, I would defer that to Ms. McDonald. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions or comments? Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Haley, for the presentation and all your time you've put into it. I don't at this point have any questions that my colleagues haven't already asked. I'm glad to see the drainage was preemptively addressed. There was a request when the deputy mayor and I had met on site with a number of the neighbors that they would like to see a requested vote. It's not up to them to ask it, so I will I'll request that of the clerk at this time for a recorded vote.
So those of you unaware of a recorded vote, because it was somewhat new to me, it doesn't happen very often, is normally we just call and then it's the will of council. This way you will know the opinions of every member of council, including the mayor, because often at times I call a vote and as long as there's 3, it's carried. And nobody ever knows what I say, so it puts me on the spot too. As this is an important decision for our community, do we wish to go into any of our thinking on it? Because I know sometimes I do that at myself, so I think it'd be beneficial, whatever way you're thinking, that people understand your thought and your reasonings behind your decisions. Councillor Bougie.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I did read all of the comments from the public and took a lot of calls on this property as it is important to a lot of people. I'm going to put a little plug in for the Heritage Advisory Committee. We have a lot of passionate people that care very much for this area, as all of council does. And then we have some heritage buildings and properties that people care very much for. So if anyone is interested in wanting to know the process to designate their house heritage, perhaps you can relay your name to Ms. Campo, the clerk, or myself, and we could have that on our meeting at the next Heritage Advisory Committee meeting. As for other comments during that public meeting, I did mention parking, which has been addressed. Now it is sufficient as per the bylaws. And to me, this building does serve a need. I think of all the senior residents that reached out. The elevator makes it accessible, and it does serve a need for our residents who maybe can't stay at their home, even some residents on Old Montreal Road that could see themselves living in this building. We have a beautiful long-term care facility coming in Lancaster, multi-million-dollar facility. So really, with this type of development, someone could stay in Lancaster their whole life, don't have to leave and go to Cornwall in between. So for those reasons, I will be supporting this proposal.
Deputy Mayor Lang.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and through you. This is a tough one. I look around the room, a lot of people I know, respect, friends I see, and on both sides. It was not simple for us to decide, and I hadn't even 100% decided where I was going to vote even this afternoon. I did a lot of soul searching this afternoon and thinking about what I wanted to do. And a lot of that was because of the pressure, I think, that I felt. And I'm not going to speak for the other councillors, but I felt a lot of pressure on this one. I think some of it, I'll rephrase that. I think it all came from a good place with people for the most part, but I think maybe some of it not fairly applied maybe, but I understand where they're coming from, so I don't want to be like tit for tat or anything, but I just want to say, and it was mentioned today about, just in the presentation, don't like allegation, you know, but allegations implied when people say that there's a smoking gun and they sequester our phone records and our emails and this sort of thing, and that hurt a lot. And I think, well, I know what you'll find when you look at mine, so I'm not worried about it. But at the same time, it was quite hurtful, and it would seem to be that this is going above and beyond what we would normally do for one of these. But I know passion's heavy on both sides, so it is what it is. We have to live. That's why we're getting paid these big bucks. I tell you. Maybe we'll have a discussion later on in the meeting about compensation. But anyway, took it very seriously, and I think everyone here did. So when I was trying to decide this afternoon exactly where I was going to be, I just kind of tried to take what the comments that I received that I thought were, you know, valid, not just necessarily not in my backyard, because I don't think that's where we have to be as a council. Because it was mentioned in an email last night that we received that we need to think about the oath we swore. So I did think about that a little bit. And I think, to me, what we need to do is we need to look at these decisions. We have to make the decision that we think is best for the township of South Glengarry. And sometimes, it isn't what the majority of people that are talking to you are wanting, but it's a tough one. It is. So what I did this afternoon is I just tried to think it through and said, if I take the pressure away and listen to just the comments, there was some very valid concerns at the beginning, especially the parking one. That one, I just couldn't come up with an answer for it. That's off the table now. We are not addressing parking in this meeting. The developers, I guess, listened to the public meeting. They've changed things around. They've turned the building so that the balconies are not hanging over someone's yard. They've addressed the parking. They've addressed the snow storage. Some of the things that were genuine concerns. The height we're not even addressing. There's lots of buildings. We have actually given minor variance, or not, I don't know if it's a minor variance, but exemptions to height restrictions in our township already. And so that one's not on the table anymore. So what I did is I just kind of try to take away the noise, try to be fair, and may not make everyone happy. It's impossible for us to make everyone happy in one side or the other. And I just said, I don't want to be one of these politicians that is accused of sitting on the fence and didn't make a decision, went with the way the wind was blowing. The majority of people said this, or and he jumps back and forth. We all know people that we kind of consider fence sitters, and so I'm not wanting to be one. So I'm going to stick with what I originally thought, that and I told the people that I met that night, I said, when Sam and I went down to meet at the lot, that if there's something you guys can show us, a reason we shouldn't do this, then we won't do it. But if there's nothing that can show that it is, a justifiable reason why this can't, and I know we don't want change. None of us do. None of us want somebody right next door to us that we're not sure about, or it's not going to look the same. But it does happen. Change does move forward, and we know that we need to have this township, I feel, and there may be people that disagree with me, but I feel this township needs to grow a little bit. In the next, likely 20 years, we're going to be looking at water, sewer in Lancaster. We're going to be needing, it's just impossible with small communities to be able to keep those things going. So I want to have it where that people can stay in their community. People retire, don't have to go to Cornwall. I think it would be great if we had some condo somewhere in the community, maybe a step above this too, that, you're not just renting. So I'm going to stay with my original decision. I thank everybody for their input, and it was hard. I'm going to give you guys, that be open and honest with you. It was very hard. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this tonight.
Oh, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. As Deputy Mayor Lang said, this was a very difficult decision, and I don't speak as well as Deputy Mayor Lang does not off the cuff, maybe that's not a fair way to say it, but so I wrote down my remarks, so I apologize to folks who don't like that, but I wanted to be sure that my words were, what I've been thinking about trying to express for the last several, as my thoughts on this have solidified. So first of all, as I've said, this was not an easy file, and nor should it be, given the significance of what's being proposed. This is a major change, and I want to thank all the members of the public who've reached out with thoughtful feedback and thoughtful conversations. And I had written about wanting to address some of those broader concerns that have been raised about the transparency of the process and the integrity of council, and our clerk, Ms. Campo, has already described how the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act works, and so I won't repeat that. But basically, I'd like to say I understand that emotions are running very high, and people are questioning motivations, but it's really essential that we base our decisions on the planning merits and not assumptions about individuals or their families on either side of this conversation. It's our responsibility to the community as a whole, and I take that responsibility very seriously. And I'd also like to say that for me, it's always very important to remember that people of good faith can hold very different opinions on a matter like this. Disagreement, even passionate disagreement, is not evidence of wrongdoing. We each bring different experiences and perspectives to the table that shape our opinions. ultimately. Sorry. So typically, if one member of council votes against something, against development, it's been me. And early in my time on council, it would have been really easy. I would have easily voted against this housing proposal. But over the past 7 years and the opportunities for education that the township, the residents of the township have afforded me in being in this position, I've learned a lot about the housing crisis, both nationally and in our region. You know, gone are the days when it was typical for grandparents to live with their adult children and their families under one roof. If a senior in South Glengarry wants to downsize to a single floor, no stairs dwelling, there's really relatively few options for them. Today, many seniors are holding on to single-family homes simply because there's nowhere else locally for them to go, and many are eventually forced to leave the community entirely when that time comes. On the other end of the spectrum, I hear feedback from folks in their 20s, individuals and younger couples who are trying to move out of their parents' homes. It's a cliche to say their basements, but in some cases that's the case. And they say they can't live in South Glengarry because of the limited rental options and that housing costs are completely out of reach. Just today, something came across my Facebook feed, a seminar on how to, for first-time homebuyers, how to try and find a place under $500,000 for a first home in this area. So I've come to believe that, you know, the promise of that single-family only subdivision has been part of what has brought us to this housing crisis, and it's created a system that leaves little room for flexibility, affordability, or community continuity. So coming to today, we're being asked to consider a zoning bylaw amendment that is for an 8-unit rental apartment building in the center of South Lancaster. And if approved, it is going to be the first medium-density development of its kind in the village. So the points in favor of supporting the application are the need for the housing diversity that I just spoke to. There's 5 one-bedroom and 3 two-bedroom units. It's a modest contribution to the housing mix in South Glengarry. But with the accessibility features, I mean, it does align with the goals of providing an accessible place for folks to age in place in South Glengarry. There's the changes from the original proposal. I do want to recognize that the applicant did respond, in my opinion, meaningfully to the feedback heard at the public meeting. In my time in seeing these kind of, proposals, this is the one where there's been the most revisions done by the applicant. And so I do believe that the reorientation of the building and the additional parking and the eliminating the need for the exemption in height and some of those other variances, I think those are significant changes. And from a policy perspective, I concur with staff that this application is consistent with what the province's planning statement and the United Counties official plan. It's within the urban settlement. It's a designated residential district where a range of housing types can be contemplated. So, but that said, I do also want to acknowledge clearly 2 critical concerns raised by residents that I believe we have to take seriously. This is a big change. It is. Even though a single-family home could be built to the same size as what's being proposed here without any amendments, the density is clearly higher. This is 8 units, and the character is not at all what residents are used to. Those feelings are valid. And certainly we have to ensure that intensification is approached carefully. But change in itself is not incompatible with good planning. And I do think that the revisions take steps to integrate more sensitively into the fabric, particularly the issue of parking and ensuring that there's limited cars as much as possible on the streets so that people can enjoy I can't tell you how many people have talked about how they enjoy their walks through South Lancaster, and so it's important not to have those cars on the road, and that's why I think the additional parking is something that is really, it is a significant change. This other thing this application surfaces an important issue that South Lancaster and South Glengarry at large have no meaningful protections for historical character. We don't have a heritage conservation district. We don't have design guidelines in place. And that means that we are legally limited to how we evaluate character beyond the processes, the planning processes that we have. And so this definitely sounds like this is a priority for our community. And so then I think we need to take steps outside of this application to create tools that I believe are needed to protect our built heritage, but It's not something to be done through this application, but this is definitely something that I would support exploring further, and I'd like to bring it to council at some point when we come to budget deliberations on how we can look at having something in place to more appropriately protect our heritage. I'm hesitating on this last point, but I think it's important to mention as well. If we were to deny this application, I'm sure folks have heard that the developer has the right to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And I'm not saying this to try and suggest that we should do things out of fear, but I do believe that the developer would have a very strong case at the tribunal, and it's very likely that if we were to deny it, that we would be overturned. And so I think this is an opportunity here to make a local decision rather than having one imposed on us externally by the province, even though obviously a lot of what's happening here has to do with the policies that the province has put in place. So to close, I do believe that the application fits in with the overall strategy for land use within our township, but it's not perfect, but unfortunately we don't have the tools at our disposal for the perfect solution. We don't have the tools to tell private people where they're allowed to or force people to do projects on certain pieces of land before other pieces of land. We don't have those tools at our, but in this case, this proposal is not perfect, but it's better than what was originally submitted. And I do think it would help support long-term sustainability in South Glengarry. And that is truly my main concern, is that South Glengarry can be a place where all residents, so from the very young to the very old, can live and grow and thrive across South Glengarry. And so for those reasons, I'm going to be supporting this amendment.
Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess, not to belabor what my council colleagues have all so articulately stated, I took a lot of, it took a lot of time to come to a decision on this application. I had a number of conversations with residents from the date of the sign essentially going in, to phone calls, to the meeting the deputy mayor and I had going down and speaking with a number of you for the better part of an hour. I spent right up until Friday the better part of 4 hours with two residents that were speaking on behalf of opposing this, and we had a good, thoughtful conversation at that time, and it is a tough decision when you get this much pressure and these many emotions are running through a council meeting, and it's not lost on us. I think we can all say we've been all consumed by this, between phone calls, conversations, and then taking the last 4 or 5 days to review the final submission. And I know it's a change. It's a definite change to what is existing in the hamlet. And at the same time, I think I've come as well to the same decision that for myself, that this type of development I think is needed in South Glengarry, because I look at example, I have an 80-year-old grandmother who's sitting in a single family home. And for her, this would be something that would be probably very attractive, in the sense of, if she has tough mobility in the future, that she wants to have something smaller, doesn't want to have to worry about taking care of grass or a large yard. This is something that would probably fit her circumstance as well. And I would like to think that if there was anybody in the municipality that didn't want to move to Cornwall and go to the Cotton Mills or any other apartment building in Cornwall and have to leave here, that they'd have a choice for an option like this that would give them the accessibility and the housing they need. I think it's, again, water and sewer. We're probably 20 years from a $50 million investment, and I know everybody here is probably well aware the water and sewer systems have to be paid for by those using them. It can't be spread across the rest of the tax base. That's a mortgage on that water and sewer system, and that's not a full redevelopment. That's just fixing what's outdated, and we've got to have the users to pay for that in the future, and this kind of development will give us that opportunity as well. It's it's a tough decision to make, and again, as the deputy mayor said, the pressure has been it's been very high. A lot of phone calls, lots of concern, and I mean, it makes you really second guess why you do this job sometimes, especially when you have your morals called into question, you're publicly ridiculed. But we chose that, and anyways, I agree. Council spent a lot of time on this, and so has staff. And I guess I'll also be supporting it this evening as well, because I think it is a step that makes sense. And at the OLT, I do feel we probably wouldn't be successful. So, and I think there's place for more of this in other spots in our municipality and around, whether it's in Lancaster or not. But thank you.
All right, I'll also share my feelings too, as I can let, okay. Share my opinion, yeah. I think council would probably, like, in fairness to Councillor Jaworski, I'm probably the other person who typically will say yes or no given any particular one. I don't have, yeah. So, I think there were probably 20,000 words that were presented to council. Read twice, I kind of went over them. The way I think is by tallying things up and then thinking on the matter. I suppose those who are still listening, if you might. Want a 5-minute break to help? Yeah, I'll just. Yeah. Would council like a 5-minute break while people who want to leave? Because I don't know. Okay, good. I'll just keep talking. I hope people can hear. Mouth close to the microphone. All right, so I believe there were 12 to 14 mentions of it being in strong opposition from the community. I think anybody who would have listened listened to how I speak, I would say my upbringing is to favor density. So you take away all of it, it would be a very easy decision personally for Lachlan, but then you have to think of the community, you have to think about what is going on in that area. And I think the redo, to me, did show the developer was benefiting, or not benefiting, but listening to the benefit of the community, because if you look across the street, and I drove there again today, I probably drove there with 3 different people just to get people who are not in that area or people who would be considered my mentors in my life, and they noticed when I showed them the report how bringing it close to the road does match more that history of close to the road in that situation. I didn't like the first rendition where you had balconies looking over into people's sides, like when you go to Paris or wherever you travel, old places with great history, you don't look sideways, so I found that was a fitting change. Whenever I thought about parking, because that was mentioned quite a few times, if you solve parking, you can solve snow clearance, ER services. It's still a small road, but I do prefer parking off of the main street. There was precedent, and that's probably where I thought about this the most, because as you go up and down the road, you'll see, especially King Street, right? So you have King Street, this proposed building, behind it, it's an empty lot, behind that is a boarded lot, behind that is, and it might be one single lot, but the way I can kind of see this is like lot, and then I'm forgetting the road just before the wharf, and then that one is just recently cleared. I believe there's a wood chipper there. So like that is the precedent that we have to take, and I think that's a very important thing to think about, because like if we allow this, and that was probably the biggest thing, it doesn't fit the community, heritage preservation, hamlet, character of, and then yeah, that was pretty unanimous across the thing. So, and I appreciate everybody giving me the time to say this, because I don't normally get a lot of time to think, so you're getting a little bit of my thought process. I'm not as organized as Councillor Jaworski, and I'm not as natural as Deputy Mayor Lang. So, like looking at the words, there was a motion, and I tried to get through a motion, because if I'm being honest, like some of the conversations make me feel like, my upbringing would say, like, think about it, feel it, and then do it. That's how I try to make decisions. So like whenever I'm thinking about it, like I do lean, like I still lean towards density, and I think that's it, not development, but density. So that's the end, but like how I got there, like whenever I thought of the Russo's property, particularly on the east side, I went back and saw the 2013 picture, and I measured on Google Earth. I think it was about 3.3 meters was the adjacency to the other neighbor. Now that wasn't the same height, but now there's 5.5 meters, so it was equivalent. So then I came back to the siding on it. Like the siding isn't the siding I think that I would want in Williamstown. That being said, my fence in Williamstown wasn't what Williamstown wanted. Mr. Rankin's house in Williamstown wasn't what Williamstown wanted. The McLaughlin house in Williamstown wasn't what Williamstown wanted, and it came to be. Now, these were not multi-units, and that's a little different. But if you've been to any conversations, and it's not fair because you're not always around, but whenever we did our infrastructure tour, I was in Glen Walter saying, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a tower here? Not a massive tower, but like, it'd be like our Central Park. Like, let's get some density there where we have services. Additionally, whenever I looked in like Williamstown, and like it is an ode to my mom, and like whenever we were getting the roads department to the fire department, she had asked the former mayor, Prevost, that please take this, build it up, and allow it for a place to me to retire in the community that I love. And like that's probably one of the bigger influence of my life would be, and she was always on me about taxation, but anyway, that's not important. The words that were shared, high consideration, think long and hard. In the interest of your constituents, we give you our voices. Please hear them. I loved to be not loved. Like I loved those words. Like there were other words that were perhaps not as positive. Like I would say blight, monstrous, ridiculous. Those are all feeling words, but it is important to consider your constituents, and not just the local constituents, because in Williamstown we always say no to things when they're new. So I thought really heavy on the Russos, and that's why I did the Google Maps. And then from 5.5 on their lot from 6, that is fairly minor in nature to me. Getting the 1.5 parking lots, that was a big thing to me too, and I actually prefer this orientation. I forget who asked me in the community, and they said, look at, was it Calvin Street, where Mr. Flaro's properties were? And I looked at them and I would say, I actually prefer this building to those buildings because that is like kind of a sprawl development where this is up. And I do have that logic, is like I like up. I would impress upon the developer as I was driving by. I think there's hydrangeas there. Like if you can plant old trees, old lilacs where possible, like that would be fitting of the village, because it's like Williamstown, it's like Martintown, St. Andrews, they're all nice villages. So it would be wise to fit the community, but that is the developer's choice to do, and I didn't have enough reason to deviate from my enjoyment of density where there's services, and therefore this will likely be a unanimous decision. I didn't want to take the political decision and just say no because it's already going to go through, because I think that would be fairly cowardice of me. But that's where I came to. When it comes to, if I can address just how people feel, I do, like I always try to say, we are, I actually Google AI'd myself, like what would Lachlan McDonald's platform say about this particular item? And it said, supports density. And I was like, okay, well, at least I'm consistent over 2.5 years. So we're allowed to disagree with people at this table, and I said it during my inauguration speech. Remember, I think I said, and I disagreed very early on one thing where we had to learn how to disagree. So I'll hop off my soapbox in a second, though. It's just like sometimes we can disagree, and sometimes like passionately disagree. It's how we emphasize it. I think for the most part, for many people, it's been done well. I'm sure like you might want to, you get a little fiery sometimes, and I probably do at times too, but I think for the most part, like the feeling here is shouldn't be dismissed. Like people, I don't think anybody who's looking at me kindly and not yelling at me doesn't think I'm making a bad decision. I'm sure you might have some reactions when you get, some of you might have reactions when you get off the table and leave for the rest of our meeting, but I do appreciate, and as I said, please hear them. I believe it's Mr. and Mrs. Powell, if I can call them out, because it was such a lovely phrase. I have not agreed with you, but I have heard you, and I've thought about it, even picking beans one day. I think I was thinking of Martin and something I said, but now I digress, because I'm not a great finisher of statements, because I didn't write it down like Councillor Jaworski. I remember during the election, you wanted the video, and it was perfect, and there I was rambling as a neophyte. Coming back to it and making it a serious thing, because it is very serious, is I realize I've probably, how do we say? I've let you down for my opinion, and that is something I will wear, and I'm happy to have you dislike me with my integrity to say it. And I'm glad that all of council has taken the moment also to say how they feel, because we could have just called a vote, but that's not transparent to me, and I guess we'll deal with ramifications as they come forward. So is there any further comments from council? I appreciate everybody allowing me the time to speak, as I don't normally speak at council in this length. Okay. Would you like me to read the resolution again? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, recorded vote. So the clerk will call the recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So, council, I will call each of you individually. When I call your name, please vote in favor or against the resolution by saying in favor or against, please. So I will start with Councillor Bougie,
Yes, in favor.
Councillor McDonnell,
In favor.
Councillor Jaworski,
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Lang,
In favor?
and Mayor McDonald.
In favor. Therefore carried. So then we will carry on with our meeting. The next item is 9C, Administrative Monetary Penalty Systems Bylaw. It's Mr. Marion, moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2025-84 be received, and that Bylaw 2025-30, being a bylaw to establish an administrative monetary penalty system, be read a third and final time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 28th day of July 2025. Mr. Marion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On June 17th, council was introduced to the administrative monetary penalty system. We had a presentation that on June 23rd that speaks about the new bylaw that is for minor bylaw infractions, and that it'll be done at the municipal level instead of provincial level. I'm open to any questions if anyone has any questions regarding this.
Are there any questions from around the council table for this particular item? Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Not really a question. I'm in favor of it. I just, when we look at the schedules and the amount of things, I wonder if we should, what we're voting on tonight doesn't change that, and I guess we can change those schedules at different future date, I would assume. But there just seems to be an awful lot of stuff. I just wondered if we should kind of at some point, I don't know if it'd be a committee hall or how we would do it, or staff come back to us or whatever. Just maybe have a look at those and say, are those all the things that we want to have, you know, if you want to call it a fine for, I guess, fine seems to be the easiest word in my head. Do we want to fine people for all of those different things, or do we want to have, you know, something a little, what I would think would be a little more balanced? But I'm in favor of voting to put this in place. I think it's going to make things a lot simpler. But I just wonder if maybe we could address that at some point later, maybe even before this takes effect, which I think is the first of the year.
Do you think we could look that over during the comprehensive fee bylaw as a spot to perhaps go over it, if that's a conversation we wish to have?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you would have seen in the staff report that before this program can be implemented by January 1st, there's a couple of more things that need to be put in place, such as appointing a hearing officer So there's work to be done this fall administratively between Pat and myself. To Mr. Deputy Mayor's comment or point, I think there'll be opportunity in the near future for us to review a process from beginning to end, especially when we're looking at the appointment of those positions. And that way then you'll have a good understanding of what the system will look like when it's in place on January 1st. In terms of the actual fees, because those fees are included in the individual bylaws and then brought into comprehensive, we'd have to be looking at amending those individual bylaws. But as you know, that's something you can do. That's entirely within your right within the Municipal Act. So on a positive note, the conversations will continue, and I think there'll be other opportunities to work with you. Pat knows far more than I will ever know in terms of, you know, the enforcement piece and how those hearings are going to work and how the other municipalities have implemented it. So I'm sure we'll work well together to make sure we're putting a product before council that will be effective come January 1st.
Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. No, I'm very glad Deputy Mayor Lang mentioned about having a conversation about because I'll be honest, I did take a look and I definitely have thoughts, but I think, I mean, just thinking about some other items that we've discussed in committee of the whole, I feel that that would be a good avenue to sort of get like lots of feedback all at once, and I think it would be more efficient. And I do think there are things that I'd like to at least discuss about having them maybe more simplified. But perhaps, as Ms. Haley's mentioned, once we have a better once maybe we have a better understanding of the process, that will also influence how our feedback there. So I would like, if we can put that as a placeholder, to have those discussions, please, because not knowing as much about the process as I would like, I think there's definitely some things that I would like to talk about more and potentially offer feedback to change.
Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as far as the AMPS part of the report is concerned, I've heard great things about the AMPS program from other neighboring municipalities. They all say it's been a great step for them as well as for residents. Whenever there is an issue, it's solved more in-house, and it alleviates that staff getting tied up in court or prolonging bylaw issues just for the sake of doing it, almost out of spite. So I do believe it'll give us a good avenue to handle things quickly, efficiently, and probably in a more respectful manner with residents as opposed to sitting with council. So I think there's a great spot for this. And the deputy mayor and I did agree, or I agree with the deputy mayor, there are some things that probably should be addressed that are in our comprehensive fee bylaw. And I think, unfortunately, if we go back to, was it September when we did, or October when we did open that up last year, I think we were just so all consumed with rates and for ice times and floor times and for this municipal building and that municipal building and who's getting a deal. So I think it makes, I think it kind of probably passed us by, and Mr. Mario got a break at that time, but maybe we'll have our day with you whenever we go through those at a later time.
And that's acceptable, like that we can, because like I do always appreciate whenever we're trying something. It doesn't need to be perfect the first time, but we'll do it as good as we can. And then even if we have council opinion, the community will live it, and we can hear back. So like it will get better as we go on. So thank you for bringing this. And are we ready to call the vote? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Moving on to information reports, winter response level of service. Mrs. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if I should feel sad that everyone left just as it was getting good as we delve into our winter levels of service. With that cheeky comment out of the way, at our committee of the whole meeting in March, I believe it was, council had expressed a desire to perhaps increase the number of plow routes that we have. Administration started down that path and wondered if we might seek a bit more clarification from council on what part of our winter performance council is looking to improve, because there are perhaps some operational strategies that we could employ that could give us the same benefits. So this is really an opportunity for council to expand upon, sorry, I'm out of breath. To expand upon their wishes, desires. In that sense, we've offered a few really broad options in item 11 in the staff report. So our service considerations based on traffic volumes, which would mean, is council interested in seeing us hit up the higher volume roads more often? Is it service type? Is it geography based for service considerations? Is it perhaps the time to deploy during an event or at the end of an event? So we'd be hitting the roads earlier in the morning. Or is it the length of service that's being perceived during an event? So we're constrained by hours of service, but if we did a different sort of shifting model, then we could perhaps extend the amount of time we're on the road. So any kind of feedback that I could get from members of council that could help us provide options would be really welcome tonight. Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Bougie, then Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you, and through Mr. Mayor, from my perspective, I think service considerations based on traffic volumes would be kind of my priority if I had to kind of rank them, but also deployment. So like, I guess it depends on the time of the event, obviously, but as long as people can get out of their driveway and get to work, I think that would be my priority, if that makes sense. And I know for planning purposes, that is probably difficult, but I've had comments in the past where, well, I can't get on my driveway, can't get to work. So to me, it would be in that order, kind of traffic volumes for sure first, and then deployment, I guess the beginning of the event, depending on when that is.
Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Similar to Councillor Bougie, service based on traffic volumes. I think if we look at, I look at the hamlets even as an example, barring large snowfalls, generally, and just speaking from my own experience, when you get called out at 2 a.m. to start a snow route, you're normally done by 7, and some people are leaving at 6 and 5, and you do your best to keep it, get things opened up as clean as you can, and it's difficult, but at the same time, generally, side streets aren't done if we're prioritizing, and I'm sure you already are prioritizing based on traffic volumes. If if Mullen Street is being left, but Duncan Street's getting done ahead of that, it does make sense that it's a short distance to try and kind of navigate till you get to one of the main thoroughways. Little things like that, as well as I thought maybe D, again, just coming back to that, time of deployment as far as, when 2 o'clock hits and the guys hit the roads and the girls hit the roads with the snowplows, the route's probably not done till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. So if there is a way to maybe, one, put an emphasis on our high traffic volumes, and whether that's with a supporting vehicle or an extra, some maybe redeployment of some equipment that you guys can creatively come up with, or maybe it is going to be additional resources that, are large assets that will have to be added, like snowplows or things such as that, or a blade on our payloader that goes out and helps, and we have a loader tractor in backup to fill trucks if we needed it, or I mean, there's no perfect solution, and it's never going to be as quick as people want it to be unless, the snowplow's pulling by as they're pulling out the lane. So it's a difficult thing to kind of address, but I think the second part I kind of looked at that time when I looked back in my notes, and of course now my page won't change, but I think I had some kind of route optimization, because at the time I think we looked at it, if there was a delay in start or the snowfall was heavy and travel times on the routes for the snowplows were reduced, we could be in an event where they're needing to take a break before they've made it halfway through a route. So is that ideal number? Should we be looking at it as that ideal number would be 2 more trucks? Because 1 more truck isn't giving us much, isn't going to, it's going to save us 40 minutes on each route, and 2 trucks is going to do 2 hours. How can we maximize our fleet, or maybe increase our fleet to increase our level of service? Nobody calls to say the snowplow did a great job, so, and that's in general. And you're always judged on your worst storm. So I can sympathize with you that when people say the snowplow hasn't been by, I've cleaned a laneway and gone by 10 minutes later, and you wouldn't have thought I was there because you can't see anything. But those are the storms we're judged on. So I won't hold those against your team because it's not fair. But at the same time, if there is a way for us to increase our level of service efficiently, or if it's, you know, a matter of 2 vehicles and we have a space for that within our fleet, that's kind of what I was looking to, as well as, maybe maximizing the Glen Road and some of our Arthur ways that we do know get high traffic volumes, making sure they maybe get done twice in a route as opposed to just once. And of course, the time deployment goes with the new trucks or potential of redeployment of assets. So lots of things there, but
Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I think it's always good to be looking at where we can improve anything, and I can't remember if I made comments at the time so I was thinking about it over again today, but I think just look at it, see what there is, give us some options if there's something that we can do to improve things a little bit. I know one point we even talked about trading with the counties, you know, for maybe like Town, Purcell sort of thing, where there we got 24-hour service, maybe they plow that. We're plowing 17 until we make a decision on 17, I guess, but you know, that sort of thing. They seemed open to it at the time, and I don't know if that would simplify, you know, our thing, if we could do it for a reasonable expense, you know, something like that. I'm open to whatever, you're the expert, whatever you can come back with.
Councillor Jaworski?
Sure, I feel like I'm talked out just over one comment. Sorry, I opened the previous one, but I mean, we've talked about this, that residents' expectations continue to climb. And if there's an idea of how we could do a step change in terms of level of service, which would mean like an additional asset, I would be interested in hearing about that. Although, I mean, there's these creative, I don't know if there are creative models where, I don't know, it's a piece of equipment that gets, you know, refitted, that's used for something else during other types of the year, or if it's some of these contractors who we have that do specific jobs for us, if there's a way to enlist them in moments of very large snowfall where they could expand what they do on a, you know, like on a very limited basis. I don't want to call it emergency basis, but like one of these really heavy event basis, something like that. But I mean, again, in terms of where this is important, I think, I mean, traffic volumes, I think, is always the first consideration. Yeah, because I think, and where like the commuters are mostly passing, which I think would be directly correlated to traffic volumes. But I mean, those are the folks that typically need to get out earlier because they have further to travel. So I guess, you know, that's kind of how I would look at it. But I'd be curious to know if there are creative ways of going about this. And I'll just throw in for good measure, because I really appreciate the wrap-up you did of that winter response from back in February. I think that information is super helpful. It helps us when we have conversations with the public. And I know there's concerns about not having like real-time information, because that could put people at risk, but I feel like that, like even, you know, a debrief of scenarios, I think that information is really helpful, just generally speaking, because I do find there's folks who are always going to complain, but then I think certain folks, if they have more understanding of how it works, you know, I think those complaints are reduced. So thanks.
I'm also talked out or thought out, so I will say I couldn't. I hope you're taking notes, because I can't sum up what council's said very well. I'd say traffic volumes for my thoughts, and I'm satisfied with our current level of service. I'm open to further levels of service should council wish to do it. I mean, it's always like Dad would say, you know, like when the ice storm came, there were a lot of heroes, but nobody thought about the roads being opened to get those heroes onto our power lines. So that's, I mean, 40, 50, hundreds of years of good roads is something that we're lucky to have here. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. And I just thought of something here, like something I appreciate very much, Mr. Donald, is it's like I'd forgotten about these things, to tell you the truth. You could have got away without even doing it, as far as I was concerned. But I appreciate that you brought them back, and we'll have to be careful that when we make comments and we're like, we like to know this, that this puts a whack of work on somebody, and, we need to think these things through, especially if they're taking it seriously and they're listening and saying, okay, I actually have to get back to them and report on that. So I appreciate you doing it, and I think it's important. And now Ms. Campo is going to give me a hard time here, but I'm just going to tell everybody that when you get a chance, read the red part on page 204, and I'll leave it at that. Not for right now, because it doesn't pertain to this.
Road widening. Yeah. 204, yeah, I saw that too, and I thought of you. I think that's my administrative miss on that one, because I think that came back to me back in the day. Funny you bring that report, just to carry that on, since now everyone will flood. Point two, I think whenever we had this first discussion, we had said which one's more important. I remember Councillor Jaworski being like, well, all in their own time. So I think for this, whenever we were looking at, I think Councillor McDonnell said these are the top two. Councillor Jaworski, your response was, well, they're all important in their own time as they come up. I'm like, yeah, we're really good at working out priorities here. They're all priorities. Or maybe it was another one, but I thought it was this. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So consent agenda, nothing was pulled. So you've got your information, Mrs. McDonald? I forgot to. Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be resolved that Council accepts the items listed on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Carried. Board and committee reports. I believe the only meeting was the county council, and this is Deputy Mayor / Warden Lang's to speak on.
Thank you very much. It was the last thing I kind of wanted to put together this afternoon, because I'm sure we were all obsessed with what we had to do today and the pressures on us. But anyway, I sat down for a few minutes, and I kind of wish now that maybe the audience had stayed for a little bit. The first thing, I was lucky enough to be able to present the Ontario Winter Games Legacy Award to Cameron Fraser, and lives in our community, lives just north of Williamstown. It was very well deserving. I don't think I should read the whole thing, but if you watch the thing, there's quite a write-up on her, and just so anybody that's not her parents are Innocent Kim Fraser, and her grandparents are Malcolm and Jean Fraser. Tim Simpson, the former CEO from the counties, would be her uncle. Yes. So that was a treat to be able to do. Eastern Ontario Regional Cell Gap Project update. And at that time, the cell gap thing is moving forward quite well, I think. But I did ask them about the broadband, like the fiber that's going in, and just made a comment to them that personal opinion, that it seemed like it was making great progress, and then it seems to have kind of stalled to me. Like I'm not noticing anybody working on our roads anymore. Like Beaverbrook was busy. Like I don't know where they're at right now. Anybody sees them in our community working very much, but there seem to be. Yeah. So anyway, I asked about that. So Cheryl from Rogers got back to me. Did say that if we wanted, they would be more than happy to meet with us, and that could be at the local level or at the county level, either one, to give an update, to kind of say where they're at. And I don't know if they will be at AMO again, but we did meet with them at AMO one time. Maybe if they are, maybe I'll suggest to her that we sit down for 15 minutes and just kind of give us an update where they're at. They're still hoping to finish on time, but they didn't tell me when on time was. I thought it was, that's what I thought it was, but I don't think there's any chance they're going to make that now. But anyway, the roads capital project, just a note for everybody, and I'm pretty sure Sarah will let us know, but there's what they call an asphalt cement index adjustment. I would call it like the truckers do the gas tax adjustment sort of thing. So whenever they quote our prices for doing our roads, this is built in there so that if that asphalt price goes up, then our quote goes up. And it went up 19.5% in May, 19.7% in June, and that equates to over $650,000 to the counties extra on our bill. It was 667 or something like that, I forget, but it was somewhere in that vicinity. Bridge work is on track. Everything was going good. It was brought to council's attention, I don't know exactly if somebody brought this up or why, but they talked a little bit about council remuneration and what the county councillors are getting paid, what the warden's getting paid. And what they did is they took the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, so it's basically everything from Cobourg, kind of north, a little bit northwest, and everything east is the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus. They took all those municipalities in that area, and they gave us the numbers of what all of their councillors are getting paid and what their wardens are getting paid. And we are the lowest. The councillor for like, I'm Wayne Moore as the warden now, but when for Lachlan or me next year when I finish being warden, we get paid $15,663. Prescott Russell is over 3 times that at $47,800, and there are, I don't know if they're quite high. No, there's 49,000. Lots in the 20s. So it's something I think that county council is going to look at and just see, are we getting left behind? Should we be? And it's something maybe we should look at the local level too. I mean, I don't know what all you guys are feeling, but last month there, I haven't been feeling I was getting paid enough for what we just went through. But anyway, that's, besides the point. And we don't get those all the time, and, it is what it is. But anyway, something to think about. I don't know if that interests anybody or not. The other thing I would add is there was talk about an SD&G Municipal Summit, and I don't know if we've confirmed it or not. Have you heard anything at your end? October 3rd is the date that we're looking at a municipal summit. I think it was done fairly well last time. I still think you certainly participated, and Ms. McDonald had quite a, I wish I hadn't missed it, but a couple of us had to go to a grand opening. But anyway, they're looking at October 3rd to do another municipal summit. So I don't know if it's totally confirmed yet, but I think they're going to reach out to everyone else. That's it. Thank you.
That was a good summary. I can't add anything to it. So then,
I can speak to the museum.
oh, the museum. Oh, I thought that Deputy Mayor was the only one. Sorry, Councillor Jaworski.
No, that's
Go ahead.
okay. One initiative that I wanted to mention is that in collaboration with the Manor House, there's Founders and Footpaths tours that are happening on Thursdays at 11:30 that start off at the Sir John Johnson House. So that's an interesting, summer tour that talks about the history of our beautiful region. And also, in terms of upcoming events, the Rib Fest that's often very well attended at the museum is set for September 13th. So something to, folks want to pencil that in. I think that's, and lastly, they're always doing things, and since we're here, we have the opportunity to talk about it. They're also going to be hosting a art show or a juried art exhibit, where they're asking, all artists in the SDG area to submit artwork or photography around the theme of flowers. And so it's from August 16th to September 21st. So so those are the 3 items I wanted to share. Thank you.
Did they have a wine and cheese this year? No.
They did, and unfortunately, I didn't. I think my mom went, but I wasn't able to go. Did anyone? I don't know if anyone from council. Well,
I was there.
then you guys could speak to it, please.
And the Glennevis Social I also missed, so I apologize to the community for those 2 events.
Can I, not a question, but just to add something, the museum, I think, is going to do their Rib Fest on September the 13th. Or at least they phoned me and asked me if I would cook ribs on September 13th. So I believe there's going to be a Rib Fest then. And from what they're telling
Isn't
me...
that what I said? That's what I said.
Oh, okay, I didn't see it. Sorry, I was reading my thing, didn't hear you. But I would add then, and maybe you already said this as well, but they're not going to be unlimited tickets. Like they're asking us how many we think we can cook, and then they're going to try to figure out how many. And so if you want to be there, I think you will need to get tickets as soon as they come out. Sorry about that, Stephanie, I wasn't.
Highland Games this weekend, and also Councillor McDonnell mentioned I missed something last week, the highlight of her funding. So if you want to say it, because for this arena,
Oh, I was just going to say that last meeting, we were just a few days after receiving some good news that we'll be receiving significant dollars to invest in the arena here in Williamstown. So that's great, and look forward for plans and some ideas coming from Ms. Harbers in the future. And thanks to the provincial government for taking and investing in South Glengarry.
and I should have mentioned that, so thank you, Councillor McDonnell, for bringing that to my attention, because it is, it's a big win. We are generally good with our finances, and sometimes that doesn't benefit us, but it's nice to have advocacy, and it's nice to have it in SDNG, and specifically us in South Glengarry. Support resolution, did you wish to speak to this, or can I get a seconder actually to bring it to the table? So support, seconded by Councillor Jaworski, moved by Deputy Mayor Lang. I'll just read the resolution, and then you can speak to it if you wish. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of South Glengarry hereby support the resolution passed by the Municipality of Tweed on June 10th, 2025, and request that the province amend Ontario regulation, or is it regular? Sorry. Is that?
Regulation.
Okay, good, okay. Okay, Ontario Regulation 391-21, blue box, so that the producers are responsible for the end-of-life management of recycling products from all sources, and furthermore, that this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MPP Nolan Quinn, and the Municipality of Tweed. So, Deputy Mayor Lang, if you wish to speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And this is to support a resolution that was on our agenda last month or last couple of weeks ago from the municipality of Tweed. And we've, I don't want to say we're overdoing it, but I think we have to keep pressure on. And everybody knows that the province has kind of taken this away from us, but they're not necessarily collecting all recycling. And businesses and institutions, and it's just ridiculous to me that if they're going to take over it, to collect it all and try to do a good job and don't leave that last little bit. I also would mention that we didn't pull it today, but everybody had a lot on their plate tonight, but Ms. McDonald is part of the SDNG Regional Waste Management Group and wrote, like there's an 8-page report in our report on starts on page 276, pretty detailed on some recommendations coming from us. So I don't know if that would be right to send that on as well or whatever, but I just wanted to support this just to keep the province aware that we would like to see them do the whole job, not just 3/4 of it. So.
All right, so that's good. So we have the mover, the second, resolution has been read. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Council convene to close session at 9:14 p.m. to discuss the following item under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act, SO 2001. A meeting a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is K, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on by the municipality, specifically plans for negotiations. All those in favor? Carried. Coming out of closed session, moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that council rise and reconvene into open session at 9:48 PM without reporting. All those in favor? Carried. Confirming bylaw, moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-40, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 28th day of July 2025. All those in favor? Carried. Adjournment. Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at 9:48 PM. All those in favor? Carried. Have a good evening, everyone.